finished fitting the closing panel here. A little bit out of alignment in terms of the way the panel was made, but I've fixed that. That now fits. Not welded in yet, but just positioned, so I know that everything's right. The mounting plates are in the right position. What I'll do shortly is to actually put the frame back on, the engine frame back on, and bolt things up and then tack weld this into position. That is its position at this stage, but I'll make sure it's right with the frame in and then tack weld that. I've made the replacement bracing brackets here. The original one was too far gone to repair, and seeing really it's, I guess you could call it an extension of the A-pillar. Quite an important piece, so I've made that. Took a while to make, probably took even longer to drill the plug weld holes, but anyway, that's done. The rear one, the same, that was too far gone to repair, so I've made a new one of those. That's worked out well. The brace in the middle here, this is the reinforcement for the jacking point. Now obviously people would know that was something that wasn't originally in there. There are a number of aftermarket ways of addressing this, including a panel that goes between the A-pillar brace and the B-pillar brace. That would tend to strengthen the whole sill. This is one I saw on the E-Type forum, the 63 fixed head coupe restoration. I prefer this because it's modelled on the original brace, and what it does is to strengthen down the sill and across the this part of the sill here. Some of the aftermarket ones just go from the top to the lip out here on the other side of this brace. I think this actually provides a bit more strength around the point, because what it's doing is transferring the compression down the sill and sort of across here. It's also tying in this strengthening piece which goes between the doors, so I think it's well, personally I think it's a better way to do it. Not hard to make, so that's been done. So what I'm going to do now is to, as I say, just put the engine frame on, tack weld these into position, and then take everything off and look at preparing the plug weld holes for the sill. I've marked some preliminary lines there to work out where the flange is on the bottom, so I'll drill the sill and then plug weld the sill to the A and B pillars. I probably put in certainly the front brace. I'm not sure that I'll put in the back brace yet, because I've still got work to do around the rear end here, so maybe I'll leave that until I address those points there. This stage is progressing reasonably well. I will be slowed up a little bit this month. I actually have another car rally on. It's a low speed car rally, 1,000 kilometres touring in my 1923 Model T Ford, so a little bit different to driving an E-Type. Probably more complex than driving an E-Type. But anyway, so that's going to slow me up a bit, but at least I want to try and get this sill welded in place. So I can do that. I think I'm well progressed to moving to the other side of the car. The right hand inner sill has now been welded into place. I've welded the engine frame mounts in, seam welded. I actually did put both brackets in. I haven't at this stage put the jacking point bracket. That will go in once I actually weld the floor in and put the cross brace in. So I need to make sure that's lining up with the cross brace properly. So that will go in later. Took a long while to weld in. You don't realise actually how many plug welds have to be done. In my case, including the brackets, 126 plug welds just to get the sill in. Quite surprising when you add them all up, but I mean, there's lots of welds on the brackets, of course, but heaps of welds on the sill itself to the A and B post. But anyway, that's all done. This will all be painted up eventually. I'm not doing that just at the moment. I need to. I ran out of linisher belts to clean up the welds, so I'll leave that for the moment. But this will all be sprayed in red oxide. Of course, I've got to wait until I put the other brace in, but that will all be sealed up. So that's all done. So this stage, the right hand side of the car in terms of repairs has been done, or in terms of the floor. All the brackets and so on are all welded in place. I'm not going to weld the floor in yet. The reason being, it's handy not to have the floor in there, because you can actually stand in there and get access to the other side. So I'm leaving that for the moment. Now this is the left hand side of the vehicle. In terms of the other side, it took me 380 odd hours to actually make all the repairs and get to the stage of just welding the inner sill in. Now, probably took me longer than someone else would, because it's the first time I've done it, and I was actually working a little bit blind in terms of the way things fitted together, and the reason for that is lots of pieces are missing. Anyway, I'm hoping that I can get this side done quicker. How much quicker remains to be seen. The damage, I've just taken what remained of the floor out. There wasn't much of it left. Damage is similar to the other side. The transmission tunnel's probably got a bit more rust in it, so that's going to be a bit of a problem. This is being replaced. Repairs to these again, as I did on the other side. Their damage is similar. The front bulkhead, I'm replacing that, and of course the inner sill and closing panels. These brackets, that one's been chopped up a bit, so that'll have to be replaced. This one just might be repaired, so it's not too bad. Anyway, so I'll just start cutting some of the rot out. Got to remove the rest of the floor around here, so I'll probably start on that first. Remove all that. Remove this closing panel here. Once again, damage similar, rusted off on the bottom. Anyway, it's looking all right, and hopefully, as I said, I'm hoping to actually do this side a little bit quicker. Now this is the car I've been touring in for the last week. Had to trailer it 1400 kilometres to the tour, and the tour went for about 500 to 600 kilometres over a week. Not as fast as an E-Type. 0 to 60, there are no times because it can't do 60. I can do 60 kilometres per hour, and in fact when I tour it I'm driving it anywhere between 50 and 60. That's obviously not up hills. Up hills it can be dropped to 30 or 40 kilometers per hour. It's not the sort of car that you like to drive on modern roads. Unfortunately, some of the tour was on main highways, so that was a little bit problematic. A lot more difficult to drive than an E-Type. Complication in terms of pedals and manual advance retards. It takes a bit to get used to if you don't drive it often enough, which unfortunately I don't drive often enough. Standard 2-speed. There's an additional auxiliary gearbox which gives an underdrive, direct drive and overdrive in those 2 speeds, 2 standard speeds. Big gap between low and high speed on the standard Model T transmission. Operating it, I'll try and give a brief description. It's not that easy. That pedal there is a clutch. It's also the main gear pedal, so push it to the floor, you're in low gear, pull it all the way up, you're in high gear. So that's standard Model T configuration. The rear pedal is reverse. Push your foot on that all the way down and you'll go backwards, providing of course you've got the lever here in neutral. So this is not just a handbrake, it's also a clutch. So halfway back you're in, you've depressed the clutch, which means you can operate reverse gear. The pedal there, third pedal, is brake. It's only a transmission brake in terms of its standard configuration, so you've got a cotton band around a hot steel drum in an oil bath. Not really what you call a brake, not for modern standards. I have added a fourth pedal, which is an accelerator pedal. That's not standard. The reason I've done that is that I've got this auxiliary gearbox. You change, it's a 3-speed, as I say, under, direct and overdrive. You operate that without the clutch, so you've got to do it via engine revs, so that gets a bit to get used to. And seeing the standard configuration, your throttle is up here, which you've got to use with your right hand, and your gear lever you've got to use with your left hand. It doesn't leave many hands to put back on your steering wheel. Steering is standard Armstrong steering. In other words, you could have muscles in your arms to turn it, so you actually need at least one hand on the wheel at all times, hence the accelerator. So they're pretty primitive by modern standards. This one's a 4-door, suicide door on the rear, plenty of room. There's no difficulty there. Wind-up windows. This is a very luxurious model. The starting of them, I just started this about half an hour ago, so if I was starting it cold I'd pull the choke button out, I'd pull up 3 hands on the crank. Now I use the crank more than I use the electric starter. There is a starter button on the floor. If I'm starting it cold, 3 hands up on the crank, turn the ignition on to battery. Now it operates with 4 coils, which are under there. In fact, I've got one out of the, there's a spare one in here. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about a coil. There's a coil for each cylinder. Throws out a massive spark. So if I starting it cold, as I said, 3 pulls up on the crank, I turn the ignition on, and depending on where the motor is in terms of its rotation, if it's on a compression stroke, the ignition will fire and the engine will start without any further cranking. Now, I don't know whether it's going to do that at the moment, so I have started half an hour ago. Now I've pulled the choke out, crank handle. I'll just, you might be able to hear it. Oh, that's three pulls on that. Push that back in. Oh, it didn't quite start. You can hear the coil sparking there. Now if I pull up on the crank, it's a bit hard holding the camera. And you have to advance the spark. I'll just climb in. Bear with me. Not easy getting in the door. Now, as I said, I've got a hand throttle. It's a hand throttle, or what Model T people call is their cruise control. So you can actually set your engine speed and you can drive. So cruise controls are not a modern invention. Advance, on battery it's a progressive advance, so every little bit I move that advances the motor. Always started on full retard, which is up. That's retarding of the engine slowing down. Now, this also has the feature of running on magneto. Now there's a large magneto mounted on the flywheel at the rear of the motor. Now that magneto puts out far more voltage. And anything between 20 and I understand probably 25, 26 volts running through those coils, so it gives quite a solid spark. You wouldn't want to have your finger anywhere near the coil or the output of the coil. So if I turn that switch across, I'll turn it to magneto. Now it's running on magneto, not battery. So I could actually disconnect the battery and run the car. In fact, you can start the car on magneto too, so you really don't need the battery except for the lights. Now the difference with the advance and retard on magneto is that it's not progressive, so I can move that without any change to advance and retard. So it's in segments. If I understood the principle I could explain it, which I don't. All I understand is that it has to be full up. That's full retard, down to about there for the next advance point. That's where I'd normally idle the car, so I'll drop it back to idle. Hear it ticking over there. And if I was running at speed, so I'll put a bit more throttle, I would advance it to about there. And that's where I normally run if I'm running this car at say 50 to 60 kilometers an hour. Anyway, so that's a brief rundown on what this old beast is. She's 96 years old. So it's a little bit older than the E-Type. Not as complicated in some ways. I don't have to worry about the fuel pump because I don't have one. It's a gravity feed. The fuel tank is actually under the driver's seat that I'm sitting on. I don't have to worry about an oil pump because it's splash lubrication. So the It relies on the crankshaft to splash the oil around the around the crankshaft, and also the transmission is running in that same bath of oil, so it's splashing around all inside the motor. So pretty simple, not many things to do, but driving it is another matter altogether. As I say, it's hard enough to get used to driving this car in standard fashion. It's a bit hard holding this camera, but I've got, at the moment it's in, the auxiliary gearbox actually gives me a true neutral for the whole car. So it's, pardon me, it's disconnected the transmission from the differential. So I need to put that into gear, so I just put it into gear. I need to hold the brake, which stops the transmission spinning, depress the clutch a little bit, and try and get it in. Right, it's in. Right. Now that's in what I call low range drive, which is first gear on this transmission. At the moment it's in neutral for the Model T transmission because the clutch is pulled back. Now I'll push that, as I say, this is a clutch pedal as well. I push that halfway down so the clutch is in. I'll release the handbrake component of that, so I actually have the handbrake on. Now it's just the clutch is on, the car's not moving. Now I'll very carefully show you. I'll use the hand throttle just because I'm trying to get the camera onto this. Now put a bit of throttle on the engine, and when I push that pedal, there we go. That's in first gear or low gear, and if I let that up without that, if that was pushed all the way forward, that clutch is deactivated. If I let my foot right up with that handbrake clutch deactivated, that would drop straight into high gear on the Model T transmission. At the moment it can't do that because the clutch is there. Now, as I said, reverse. All I have to do is push that pedal. It's in clutch is activated, the handbrake is off. Bit of throttle. Back we go. Quite simple, if you remember it all. Anyway, so that's what's occupied me for the last 2 weeks, apart from preparing it for the tour. The car went well, considering. A little bit of an ignition problem. The ignition actually doesn't have a distributor. Just bear with me, I'm going to squeeze out again. Quite a step up and down. We've got small wheels on this, 30-inch wheels. There's the massive power plant. Now, as I say, it doesn't have a distributor. It's got what they call a timer on the front of the camshaft, that's it there. Now, all that does is earth the coils. When I pull the lever, the housing on that timer moves around and changes the point where the earthing is activated. That's the output from the coil. So the coil box is on the other side. And slip on off. Not very good in wet weather, you've got to watch out that things don't arc out. But that's the motor. Very, very simple. Oh, another thing it doesn't have is a water pump. No water pump either. It's thermo-siphon system. Things are very simple in Henry Ford's days. Carburetor, simple updraft carburetor, pretty well foolproof. Yeah, not much else to explain. That's a generator. That is that. It runs well. Ideal for backcountry roads, quiet roads. Inside, very opulent inside. The car, of course, wasn't like this when I got it. I had to rebuild it, but that's another story. The construction, just very briefly, is wooden frame on the body, separate chassis, wooden frame for the body. That wooden frame is covered in steel. This section is steel, but this section is aluminium. So above this line, it's actually aluminium. In fact, the doors are aluminium as well. All four doors are aluminium. The rest of it's steel. So it's an interesting construction. So anyway, enough of diversion. I just washed it after the tour, got rid of all the dirt and the bugs. So I put it back in the garage and get back to work.